Hey, this is Blanket Statements, an Anxiety Blanket Records podcast where artists have a chance to interview each other. It's an opportunity for them to talk all things independent music and find connection in new places. This episode, Aaron Olson of the Musical Tracing Ensemble talks with artist Dylan Marx about cover bands, books they've never finished, their individual process, and how different mediums of art can sometimes inspire you to create. Here you go.
If you were or are going to do a cover band, what would that be?
Me and my friend were talking about doing one of Animal Collective doing Merriweather Post Pavilion, because it would be like so like impossible to do, just to try to like recreate those songs as naturally as possible. And then like if we were to succeed and like make it like really good and accurate, like people would see it and be like, nice, cool, that sounded right. Like and then it would just be done. And so I thought that'd be kind of
would you use
fun.
Backing tracks or something? Like how do you...
We'd probably... Well, we've already started just like trying to recreate some of the songs just in like Ableton. But I think we'd try to do like maybe a little mixture of live and then like maybe not like backing tracks but like samples or something. But doing that, it's like, because it'll have like some sound that's like sounds like a spaceship or something, like some crazy, and you're like, they didn't like imagine that sound and then like try to create it. Right. They like probably had some like video game sample and then like put it through a delay or whatever. Yeah,
reverse engineering an Animal Collective album, I imagine, would be harder in some sense than making an Animal Collective album.
Yeah, it's a different... So then, you wonder if you just like try to get in the mindset and like go towards the same thing in the same way, as opposed to like try to like go backwards. I don't know.
I think I only know the like hit song from that album about his girls.
Yeah, and his walls.
And I like that song. But I imagine that the whole album is like similarly textured and like electronic-y. Yeah,
there's like a lot. Yeah, I don't know.
So are you going to do that?
I think we're talking about it. We probably
for Halloween?
Yeah, I think that's enough time to at least do some of it.
Do you have a name for it? I feel like
I don't know.
Okay. I feel like a lot of cover bands start with a name, honestly.
Yeah. I don't know. Do you have any new cover bands in mind?
I feel like if I was doing a Halloween cover band, I'd want to do something spooky or dark, or I don't know. Maybe like Crime in the City Solution or something. I don't know if you know or like that band.
That's like a niche cover band.
It's a pretty niche cover band.
I think that's good.
But I don't really listen to a ton of dark music, I guess. Or I don't know. I guess I do. I do a late Scott Walker cover band.
That'd be fun. Yeah.
I don't know.
It'd be a fun one to like reverse engineer too. Like get like a gong and put like marbles on it or something.
Get some slabs of meat and punch them.
Yeah. I really thought he was gonna do like one more pop album before he died. Like he would just go like full pop, but
that would have been cool. I would have liked that. I do like his weirder, later dark stuff, but not nearly as much as I actually like everything from the early 80s and before.
I love that song, The Seventh Seal, where he just like describes the movie.
Yes.
It's like, I was trying to think of other like songs that do that just like, I guess like Wuthering Heights just kind of is like the name of the book, and
it actually, Kate Bush hadn't read the book.
Oh really?
When she wrote that song, and she hadn't even seen the whole movie. She like caught a little bit of the movie on TV or something, and then went and wrote that song. And then she later went back and read it and watched the whole movie, I think. The thing with the Musical Tracing Ensemble is that the majority of the music by a long shot already exists, and they're reinterpretations of it. So I'm not like writing for it. So I don't have that the vantage point of internalizing a film and then regurgitating it into something else. So it's kind of doesn't work that way.
The process for that though, is it like everyone's listening to the song, or everyone's listening to like you humming it, or is it
everyone's listening to the actual recording.
Okay.
Like the famous recording or whatever. So
Yeah.
for Koyaanisqatsi, we had the film playing, and then I just redirected the sound to everyone's headphones, and none of the sound was redirected to the theater speakers. So then the ensemble was just playing it, and then everyone in the crowd heard what they were playing. And they're instructed to play in earnest to the best of their ability anything that they're hearing. So you're not supposed to solo or like improvise per se.
Do you try to like structure the ensemble like around the same instruments and parts, or is it just kind of like people listen and they try to like pick out a part and play it?
It's a free for all. Anyone can play any part that they hear that strikes their ear. So I have an email that I send every time to the ensemble when we do it that has instructions, and in it it's the same script I've used for the last 8 years or however long, and it says basically like a guitar could try to play the drums, and like, or a saxophone could try to play the bass line or whatever, and you could also just move around to whatever. I mean, as long as you're trying in earnest to recreate anything that you're hearing on your instrument. So yeah, I try to pick the ensemble based on instrumentation, just as far as what I think would be interesting as a ensemble, but often it comes down to who's available. So
Okay. Do you feel like does it kind of like slowly start to take shape over the whole piece, or is it kind of like it kind of ebbs and flows? Or?
Yeah, generally, like if you I've recorded almost all of the shows we've done, but if you like start a song, if you're listening back and you start a song, it's abstract, and by the end you're like, it becomes much clearer what the song is. It kind of reveals itself through the repetition and the musicians finding the key and then having parts repeated. So yeah, there's certain criteria that I try to keep in mind when I'm picking the songs, like that can help a piece be more traceable. Also, there is no goal. There's no like right or wrong way. So if it is totally chaotic, that's fine too, because it's an experiment every time. Do you draw direct inspiration from any specific films or?
No, I mean, I guess not really directly in the same way as like The Seventh Seal or something, but I guess just in like watching things or like reading things, there's just always stuff that like makes its way into things, but it's never felt like kind of like one-to-one. Although I've been thinking a lot about like I guess just like opera, how like a lot of people like like write music but it's to some other story or like text or something, and like that idea of just like deliberately doing one thing and being like very clear about it. I guess like in the case of like opera or something where you would do just the music and then there would be like text that someone else had written, but yeah, just like like making something very specifically about something, as opposed to just kind of like, oh, this is this open thing that like is a culmination of a bunch of other stuff that like finds its way in, if that makes sense.
I listened to the most recent album you have on your Bandcamp, which is that a score for something?
Was that do you happen to, is that Rooms, or was
it?
Yeah, that was for this like dance piece that someone did. It was kind of like an immersive, it was kind of like theater, kind of like dance, where she turned this big theater into like a mall, and so she divided it up into all these different her name's Toki Wang, and she like divided up all the theater into like all these different like stores, I guess. And so she asked if I could make music for each store.
So that's why there's like shoes.
Yeah, there's one about shoes, and there's one. Yeah. But I feel like it's a lot more interesting like in the space, because all the music is playing at the same time. And so like it is like localized, like the first, the shoes are like in this one zone, and then the clothes are like in this other zone, and like they're on opposite sides of the theater, but you still hear them. So it's kind of like this big like, I don't know, just mix of sounds.
Very
which
Charles Ives.
Yeah. Which the original intention was for it to be more isolated. And then when we heard it in the space, like you could hear everything at the same time, and it was kind of nice. And I think it was better than like having tried to make things that like fit together.
Right. Well, yeah, that as an album definitely felt, I mean, were it not written for one specific like art piece, I would say like that sounds like something that you were writing with what you were describing in mind, like a text or something. But I guess that's kind of also the nature of doing a score for something. Yeah. Is that you are doing that.
Well, like I think each like there was like a shoes scene and a clothes scene, and they did have like a story and like a dance movement to it, but I didn't really like see too much of it beforehand, I guess. I mean, I saw like a little bit of it, but she kind of gave me some direction, and then I kind of just like tried to make an arc that worked with what she wanted. But
it's a cool suite of music.
Thanks. Yeah,
I enjoyed it quite a bit.
Thanks.
But yes, your album. What is the title again? My apologies.
Romu Atsumin, or Black Oil Sunflower for Wild Birds.
Okay.
That's like kind of long.
Well, I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Thanks.
Again, my limited Animal Collective knowledge aside, there were like moments where like vocally there was something that happened. I was like, oh, that's kind of like hitting something like that or something like. To hear you mention Animal Collective, I was like, oh, okay, like maybe that's in your DNA.
It's funny because I feel like there's such a like charged thing for people at this point. It's like I feel like a lot of people listen to them when they were like you're like 18 or something, and you're like, oh, I can like use pedals in music or something, or like, and they make like such a specific like sound or like kind of their own world that like I don't know, it's easy to be like really like put off by it, and also like not because it's like jarring, but because it feels like oh, this is like 2009 kind of, or like feels like that was such a moment, and then it's like I don't know, it feels, but I don't know, not that it's like dated, but that it's just like I don't know. Yeah,
it does. I mean, I guess Animal Collective does like evoke 2009 for my personal relationship to it. But yeah, musically, I mean, I thought it was a really diverse album, and it didn't sound like anything, which is good, I think. I mean, it sounded like its own thing, that is. And but it also like did bring up I don't want to overuse the word vibe, but you know, people like to talk about how things are a vibe now. But it like brought up kind of like the aura of like at times things like Syd Barrett or early Smog. I don't know, like that's it didn't sound like those things, but it like felt like it's coming from some of the same places or something.
I mean, it's fun to just kind of do whatever, I guess.
I mean, I'm curious, like, what, like, are you sitting down and like with a guitar and like strumming out chords and singing, or are you like some of it comes across like maybe you're like collaging some things and like starting there, but then some of it also feels very like song based. So I'm curious where it starts for you, I guess.
I think they all kind of start from like different places. Like some of them do like it's like a song on like a guitar, or like, and then it's kind of like sometimes writing something, it'll like take a really long time, like just kind of going through like, you know, like what makes sense to do next, or like chord after chord, and then sometimes it'll just like be like come out like right away, like you're playing something and then it like is already the song. But then like there's one song on there, Slouching, is like I just like did that, like I just like played a song and kind of just like made up the words as I was doing it, but then spent like a really, really long time, like a year or whatever, just like trying to like add to it or like make it more of a thing, and then I tried to like redo it or something, but then I had to like keep the original in there because I don't know. But Well, actually, I guess the way that it ended up being made was like there was the original, like, I guess, scratch track in there or whatever, and then like I made all these things around it, and then took out the original. So I guess it's not, I don't know, but it maybe in the similar idea of just like having this like sound that's like a score, and then like what goes around that, I guess. I don't know. I mean, it's not, it's
not unlike the Musical Tracing Ensemble.
Like a connection.
I mean, it sounds like
but it's nice to think of like music in that way as like, I guess, like alive, or like that can become like other things, or like things surround it, and like show, like by like pointing to the thing, like you do like see the thing, or like there's not really another way to like.
Like you took out the actual core of what started the song, and in the end it was just everything that was around it, basically. It was like the imprint that it left.
I mean, that's not like the most interesting example of it, just because it's like at the end of the day it still is kind of like I'm still singing the same words and like playing the same chords. But I don't know, I like that idea of just like thinking of music as more like alive in that way, which I think is something you do with Musical Tracing Ensemble, where it's like if you think of like box music, like a lot of people want to hear it on like, you know, like a harpsichord, or like one that's in like a proper tuning or something. But like like what's that one called where it's like on synth or whatever,
switched on Bach?
Switched on Bach. Like he probably would have loved that. He probably would have thought that was sick. Just like where you like have something become,
his
like,
head would have exploded if he heard that.
I don't know, just like letting something, like I feel like that's how music, maybe people used to conceptualize it more, where it's like something written and then it can like exist in different ways too. Whereas like now a lot with like recording and like recorded music being like the main way that people listen to music, people think of it as this like fixed thing more.
I mean, look at like Bob Dylan or someone like, or any musician who plays live and doesn't try to recreate their albums, you know, faithfully or whatever. Like that makes sense. Like why not let the piece of music live its own life and like take on different forms? I feel like for a long time I was really stuck to like, I have all these ideas and they all need to be there, and like it's hard to subtract things. I feel like that's something I strive to do in my own like written music, or like, you know, non-musical tracing ensemble music. And I feel like I look to the game Bananagrams for that, because through playing that game, I don't know if you've ever played Bananagrams. Okay. Like I think it really helps to like not be attached to the words that you have, because you're constantly having to rearrange the letters that you have to work with to to make more words. And to me it's like living Scrabble or something is what Bananagrams is. And I think honestly in playing that game, like it's helping me be less attached to like this like guitar line that like maybe isn't necessary. I can just let it go. And then or even like like you were saying, like maybe even the element of the song that like is how it was written. Like if I wrote it on the piano, then I end up taking out the piano and it's going to be okay. Or it might be okay. It might not be, but being open to that, I think is can be difficult.
It kind of just like keeps things open, I guess. Or I think if you're like making something that is a recording too, you like, it's hard to not think of it as the final form of something, and then you can just like drive yourself crazy by like being like it should exist this way or it should exist this other way, or like both at the same time. But if you could like think of it as like this is just like an iteration of this song, then that I guess is freeing, which it feels hard to do now. Like it feels like somewhat counterintuitive, but like I don't think people would have like thought twice about that like before recorded music, if you're just like, we're gonna play this song and then we'll play it again another time, or
absolutely. There's there's a book that was a little like, it's been sitting on my shelf. I started reading it and I couldn't get through it because it was a little too dense. But David Grubbs, do you know him?
Is
He's
that
a musician?
The audience is a...
Well, he has 3 or 4 books, but
Okay.
one of them was called Records Ruin the Landscape, and it was about how basically the gist I got from what I got through was that improvised music shouldn't be recorded. And that the recording of the concept of recording music kind of, well, as he says, changed the landscape, but totally changed the way we think about a piece of music existing. And then, yeah, we become like married to, again, like, I don't know, the version of some song from Blonde on Blonde or something. And then you hear it in the 80s and you're like, oh, this is not as good or something, you know. But yeah, the tradition is that you perform a song and it existed in that moment, and that moment was shared by anyone who participated.
That's, yeah, it sounds interesting. I feel like I have a David Grubbs book that I haven't read, but
don't we all?
But
sorry, David Grubbs.
The person who recommended it to me, Tim Feeney, do you know Tim Feeney? He like also talks a lot about improvisation and how it's like what he loves about it is that like if you experience, like if you didn't see it, then you like missed it, and it's just this like thing you experience at the time. And there's just, I don't know, something really nice about that.
The Musical Tracing Ensemble is like, operates on the basis of no performance being the same ever, because you could play the same song over and over, and it's just, no one's learned material. So that's a large tenet of the whole project, is the fluidity of interpretation, I guess.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was trying to bring that up a little bit, because it seems like maybe like, like that. You do that, I guess.
That is accurate.
It's I feel like it's hard to find ways to do that now, or at least I guess like, I mean, I guess it does happen, but to like really point to it and kind of like make people more aware of it is really nice.
Yeah, I guess the reason I've like pursued it is because I've always been a fan of music that is kind of like ever changing and loose, I guess. Maybe feels like it's going to fall apart at any moment. And I wanted to find a way to make that kind of music without pretending to like not know how to play an instrument. I mean, I'm not like saying I'm like super good at instruments or something. But like I didn't want to like pretend to like play badly or something. So also as a fan of like minimalism and like Steve Reich's early like pieces, which would be considered like process music, where the process in the music is audible, that like the process through which the music is essentially changing is audible. So like phase pieces or something, where one tape loop is slowed down slightly and then they get off phase of each other. The process, as a fan of that kind of thing, process music, I wanted to find a process through which I could earnestly make music that sounded, sounded naive or like, falling apart, I guess. Which also, a bonus is that it'll always sound different.
It's nice that it's I feel like it would be a very different thing if it was like people like pretending to like not really know how to play it. It's nice that it's like very much like real, and like it's like failure is like part of it. Like that's kind of like it's like built into it, and that is like what you end up hearing, and it like approaches this thing. It's really it's a nice
it's definitely failure is a part of it for sure. And there's no like wrong outcome really, unless everyone decided to not follow the process. And it's also kind of a big equalizer for talented musicians or of all ranks of talent, because I've had everyone from like a beginner to classical to jazz like shredders, and everyone gets squoze out the same way.
That's cool.
Where they yeah.
How long have you been doing it?
I recorded it first in 2014. Yeah, okay, yes. I was in Idaho with my wife. We were like cabin sitting, and I just had a lot of time, and I was like, what happens if I play along to Music for 18 Musicians by Steve Reich 18 times on different instruments without ever learning it, and then take the original recording out? And I liked what happened, and that was kind of based on, I had heard that the Residents had recorded an album kind of by that method, where they played along to like records and then took out the records. And then I was like, oh, maybe I could do this live. So at good old Pairspace, I think the next year I got 18 people and figured out a way to split a sound source into 18 headphones, and then we did it live. Yeah, I like the idea of chance, of like it could go anywhere, and then you could do it again and it could be completely different, I guess.
Yeah, that's cool.
We'll see if that ever happens.
Yeah.
Thanks to Aaron Olson and Dylan Marx for joining us this episode. You can find both artists on Instagram at Aaron M. Olson and at Dylan Kurt Marx. You can buy their tapes at anxietyblanket.bandcamp.com. This has been Blanket Statements, an Anxiety Blanket Records podcast. It's produced by Jeremy Leisure, Bridie Hicks, and Garrett Labonte. You can follow the label across all social platforms and support their artists on Bandcamp and by seeing them live. Thanks for listening. See ya.